All right. It is Wednesday again, the second Wednesday of the month. It's April 10th, 2024. I'm Justin Bogard, your host for the Real Estate Note Investing Be the Bank broadcast. And today we're going to be talking about seller finance data, specifically, actually, the numbers for 2023. So we have our friend Tracy Z that's going to be on the show today, and she's diving into all the questions that you want to know. How many loans are actually created a year in seller financing, residential, commercial, land? How big is that pool of inventory available for you, and kind of what does it look like over the past few years? So if you want to learn all about that, stay tuned. What is up, my friends?
There he is.
Oh, hey, Chris.
How are you?
You made it in just in time.
Hey, in the back, I was having camera issues. I don't even know if my background's the right way or backwards, but it's just been one of those days. I was literally on the phone at 5:59 with the attorney, and I'm like, I got to get off because I got to go live. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I'm going to be on a live stream. And he's like, okay.
He's like, what is that?
Did he know what that was?
He did, and he kind of chuckled. But hey, Tracy.
Hey, Chris. It's good to see everybody. Hi, Justin. Hi, Jay.
Hi.
Hey. Yeah, Tracy, thanks for being on the show. Chris, you are like the kid that sneaks in right just as the bell rings in school and squeezes in between the door before it shuts. I'm here. I'm on time.
So yeah, I got the one of you texted me and it's like, are you?
That was me. I was texting me and said, "Are you coming?"
Jay.
Here's the thing, Chris. If they hadn't said anything, nobody would have even known. It just here and everything was fine.
So everyone out there, was I here on time? Did I show up?
You were right on time, right on the money.
So. We have no evidence to prove otherwise, other than you admitting it. So. All right. Well, hey, we appreciate you rushing to get on the show today. We always appreciate your insight. And so, Jay, you're obviously a continuing guest on here, and Tracy's our new guest for today. And like I mentioned before, Tracy has data that she collects, and this isn't the coolest time of the year for me is to hear the reports and the numbers and kind of what's going on. So we're going to dig in that a little bit deeper. But Tracy, if you wouldn't mind, kind of give the audience just a quick background on you. So your name is a popular name, Tracy Z. If you're not on LinkedIn and you're in the note space and you don't know Tracy, you probably are hanging next to the Puxatawny Phil in the hole.
Well, I got started buying seller finance notes in 1988. I had a title and a real estate background. I grew up in a small rural area, so I was familiar with seller financing. Yeah. And I went to work in the big city of Spokane, Washington, which is sort of a joke, right? Because it's a medium-sized city, but I grew up very small town. So when I went to work for this company, they were buying seller finance notes, and they'd been doing it for 30, 40 years when I started there in 1988. So I used my title knowledge to work with them to do closings. And then they taught me this whole world of investing, and I learned the financial calculator, and we were buying all over the United States. And that was their primary purpose. They used insurance funds, and they had a security that they would buy the notes with. And these were all seller finance notes. And then I did that about 10 years and was a vice president there. And then I got the bug to be an entrepreneur. I couldn't buy notes for myself when I worked there. And I had a kid at home. I really wanted to be there when she got home from school. And so I wanted to have a little bit more flexibility and put my knowledge to work to make money for myself instead of everybody else. And so, that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
And was fortunate enough to meet my husband, Fred Rui, through the note business as well. And so we started our own company in 1997. And we've been buying and selling seller finance notes. And we started a website, noteinvestor.com. And we have a group that also, works together to find and deals and source deals. So I love the note business. We've seen it change over the years. I know there's other types of paper. People make private loans. People buy scratch and dent. People buy non-performing. But my sweet spot has always been the seller finance notes.
Tracy, if you could put it in the simplest terms that you can, because I'm sure you have, a lot of experience doing these elevator pitches, but people often get confused when I try to explain seller financing. So I want to know, how does Tracy explain it to somebody, like what seller financing is?
Well, let's say I owned a property and I wanted to sell it to you, Justin, as the buyer. Normally, when I sell it to you, you'd either have to pay cash, or you'd have to go out and get a loan from a bank.
Right.
But if I agree to be the bank, which is what your podcast is all about, right? I'm going to sell it to you and allow you to make payments to me over time. And I'm going to get the interest just like a bank. And I'm going to have the same kind of security as a bank. So it's an alternative form of financing. Some people call it creative financing, but really it's just, I'm going to sell to you. I'm going to let you make payments to me instead of going out and having to get a new bank loan.
Just beautiful. Awesome. I overcomplicate it way too much, and I try to add more to it. So I need to trim it way back. So just out of curiosity, and I'll let each of us chime in. And we'll start with Jay. What is one term you've also heard that's relative to seller financing that means the same thing?
Contract for deed or land contract.
Yes.
Seller carry is another one.
Great.
Owner finance instead of seller finance.
Okay. I've also heard private finance.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else want to chime in? Any others? Over here.
I was going to say agreement for deed. Sometimes people might do a lease option to purchase, which is kind of, it is, but it isn't kind of, you start kind of going down that gray path, but.
All-inclusive trust deed, also AITD or a wrap mortgage, wraparound mortgage. That could be a lot of times seller financing.
So all these terms that you guys are hearing us talk about, it's all same thing as what Tracy just said. The concept of it is the same. It's just called different things, probably depending on where you're at in the country, right?
Oh, true. Yeah. Very true.
Yeah.
So I like Tracy's explanation of, if you just think about who's the bank, and if it's the person who owns it, then who's financing? Seller finance, bank finance, private finance could be, somebody privately, that's actually, a simple explanation there, Tracy, that, I found easy.
That's why we have her on the show. She just makes things easy.
She just, she makes it simple. The KISS principle.
The KISS method. That's right. We were talking about that offline. Tracy, off to the side panel, there's like a little communication box, like for private chat. If you want to put that website in for us to go to, so I can add it to everyone on all the platforms during the show. I'm going to go ahead and transition to the PowerPoint here so we can get going with some slides. I know everyone's anxious to see, my PowerPoint because it's so cool. So hang in there.
Why are you doing that? I'm more anxious to see if Jay was able to get this to live stream to his other channels.
I did. Nice. So the little help from Justin.
A little nudge.
It shows that it's going there, and I even checked on my phone to see if it was.
Wait, you got a phone?
I have a phone.
You got a mobile phone?
And it's not even a flip phone anymore.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to protect you, Jay, because they're giving the hard time to the person who figured out how to get it to stream. That does not seem fair.
So Jamie's not here, so we got to pick on somebody.
I would have loved to see.
And since I'm the newest to the group, I get to be the one. It's okay.
Would have loved to seen his son take a picture of him looking at a rotary phone and trying to look at like either the earpiece or the dial, like wondering like why don't I see it?
I grew up on a party line. Okay.
I had a party line because I was rural. We had a party line.
Me too. I was rural.
Imagine having that nowadays. How funny would that be?
You learn. People treat it like a party line. They're all talking on their phone in public. That's like having a party line. Or they got a speakerphone.
Yeah. So I remember only having to dial 5 digits to call somebody.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was very rural area too. We had the last 4 and the last extension from the year, 3-digit extension. Yeah.
All right. Let's continue this conversation.
Oh wow.
I'm a squirrel, so just like ignore me because I'm always.
Well, like we're leaving now. We're leaving.
Yeah. Look at you now. All right, hang on. All right, guys, it's broadcast would not be possible, if I can get my screen going here, without some sponsorship. So today, being sponsored by American Note Buyers, that's the company that I started here. If you reach out to us at investors@ambfunds.com, we buy loans, we sell loans, we trade loans, we help people create loans. That's kind of our jam. We have a small fund that we started last year, and we're mainly in the seller carryback, private finance, all those words we used earlier. That's the type of inventory that we buy and we sell. If I can get the screen going here again. Here we go. All right. Mr. J, you want to explain real quick?
Sure. We raise capital to buy and create mortgage-backed notes, and we pay our private capital partners above average returns, and we help. We kind of are the seller financing. We help families that fall just outside the bank qualifying guidelines to be able to purchase a home.
Awesome. Thanks. Chris?
Yeah, we're a fund raising money from accredited and non-accredited investors to invest in non-performing and performing mortgages.
Sweet. And Tracy, if you want to play the buy roll today.
Buy roll there.
I think she can wing it. You're Jamie right now.
Buy Investors for Investors provides loan servicing to investors who want to maximize their returns.
I wouldn't do that,
Jamie.
I wouldn't do that too good, Tracy.
That's better than Jamie.
Jamie's watching. He might, be, we might have a new, marketing and salesperson.
Yeah, one less thing he has to do, right?
Yep.
All right, guys. In the chat, I'm going to be putting in Tracy's website. That's going to have the basically the stats and the data that she's going to be talking about here today. So that's going to pull up, and if it's not pulling up, it is going to be, let me see, I'll pull it up on here. Sorry, Chris, you disappeared. Noteinvestor.com/stats is where it's going to be at. So check that out. And all of us on this show right now, all of us have our own podcasts and stuff. Mine's called Be the Bank. Tracy and I are actually going to record one tomorrow. So it's going to be released next Wednesday. We come out every other Wednesday. So we do about 26 episodes a year, and our conversation is geared around real estate notes, but more debatable and discussion topics. So it's just kind of fun. So we're going to beat that up tomorrow. Mr. J has one too.
Yeah, we have a live Zoom call that we do on the last Thursday of every month, 12 to 1 Eastern time. We just call it Note Talks with Kyle and Jay, and that's really driven by the questions that the participants bring to the table. We typically have a couple things always planned, but it's an open discussion to help particularly new investors to start getting their questions answered and help giving them some guidance to make sure that they're not doing something really crazy.
Right on. Chris?
Yep. It's we host the Creating Wealth Simplified podcast, where we talk about mortgage notes, also passive income, and how to invest passively, as well as due diligence in making sure that you vet sponsors, you vet loans you buy, whatever aspect of real estate that you're investing in, trying to educate people to make sure they avoid mistakes, and of course many of the ones that I've already made. And we also are having Tracy on in the future, and I'm not going to say anything, Justin, but she may have said she was saving the best for last, but we're not going to say anything there. So
I don't blame her. Chris, I know you said that, but I want you to know that I do have my Boston Cup out today.
Oh, there you go.
Celebrate, even though we lost yesterday. The home opener was yesterday, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. We won't talk about that anymore. That's sad news. Anyways, so Jamie has this cool podcast called Diversity from Abundance. It's not really a note investing or real estate podcast. It's a really cool thing that he does, and just talks about when people go through these trials and tribulations and where they end up today. And some of the stories are pretty emotional. I think most of us have been on there as a guest on there to kind of get vulnerable, I guess, and talk about our past and stuff. But I don't know, it's pretty cool. So thanks, Jamie, for doing that. And Tracy, do you have some sort of ongoing podcast that you guys do?
We're getting ready to do our twice a year lunch and learns. They're a free set of lunch and learn webinars. So if you go to noteinvestor.com, we'll be sure to send you notifications. Those will be going April 23rd.
Again, noteinvestor.com, and also noteinvestor/stats to get the information that we're going to talk about here. Probably right now, if my slide is right. There we go. Okay, Tracy, I'll let you kind of start the conversation here and I probably butchered up where you're getting this information from and how you're deriving it, but just give us kind of the history and the background on why you started doing this.
We always wanted to know how big is that owner finance market. And we have the ability to go to the courthouse and get data that's been recorded. So when property's transferred, a deed gets filed. And from that record, we see somebody gave a deed to the buyer, and at the same time, they took back a deed of trust or mortgage. So that indicates they owned the property, sold it, and seller carried or seller financed. So those two documents get recorded together. So we found out, and we've been tracking this, so 12, 13 years very, very carefully. We used to track it a little bit differently, but we didn't have as much data. Now we've got a lot of data because a lot of counties have their data online. So we found that last year in 2023, there was 28 billion with a B in seller finance notes. And that's not an anomaly in the last 5 years. So when you add them all together, it's been 125 billion in the last 5 years. So a pretty substantial number.
I think most people are surprised that that number is so high. I think they feel like because they don't hear it and they don't see it every day like we do, they just assume like, oh yeah, there's probably a few $1 million in the year. Like, oh no, it's billions, billions of dollars.
Yeah, this is only what's recorded, and it's only first position, and it's $30,000 or more. It doesn't include things like unrecorded contract for deeds. If those weren't recorded, they wouldn't be picked up. It doesn't include seconds. It doesn't include all those private lenders. So if a private person lends money to somebody, that's a private mortgage, a private loan. It's not necessarily a seller financed deal. So it doesn't include any of those. These are truly seller financed where the owner sold the property and took back a mortgage or a deed of trust.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for clarifying that, because I assume that data that you just described last was in there. So that makes this pie even larger than I thought.
Much larger.
Yeah. And when you look at it, Justin, people think, oh my God, 28 billion, that's a lot. And again, you look at, people forget how big the mortgage market is. We talked about this previously. It's, just on single family residential, before even like duplexes up to 4 units, you're like 13 trillion. So seller financing actually is, 28 billion is huge for us as investors to tap into, to buy that type of product. Overall, it's not even, probably, shining star in the universe compared to the overall market when you look at things.
That's a good point. I wonder if there's statistics out there of, people that are in let's just say the traditional mortgage space versus this space, the seller carry space. So how many billions of dollars are in this space compared to how many people like us that are buying them versus the other side of the world where there's, hedge funds and other people that do mortgage-backed securities for the standardized stuff. I wonder what that ratio would be. Just curious. Not too many of us out there. I think we're the only 4 doing it right now.
There's a lot of people that say they do it, but then, when it comes to, it's kind of like going skydiving. They might go up into the plane, but they just sit in a seat and never, unfortunately, ever make that leap.
Or whether they do it correctly as well. That's the other thing.
Yeah, most jump without the parachute, unfortunately.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly what typically happens.
That's why you have a quality check before you jump out.
There you go.
I got my pants, I got my glasses, parachute. Oh, I left that up there. There you go.
But I'm looking good going down though.
I got my GoPro. That's all I cared about, right? Live streaming the video on the way down. Splat. All right. If you guys have any questions or comments or just want to say, hey, feel free to use the whatever social medium that you're on, the comment section. So we'll get them up here and display it. Happy to know that you're listening to us. And we would really appreciate if you subscribe to any of our social media channels. And obviously, we want you to subscribe to American Note Buyers YouTube channel as well. And I think Chris has it on his 70 Investments YouTube right now streaming. Jay has it on his LinkedIn and his Facebook. Is it your group or your private page?
Private. It's my both personal pages.
Private. Yeah, so you can check us all out there. We appreciate that. Tracy, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one here.
So here's what's cool about 2023, and you're thinking, well, we're in April 2024, but it does take a few months after the end of the year to get all that data collected from the courthouses. They're not always reporting super timely, so we like to make sure it all flushes out. So what we found out was from 2022 to 2023, the dollar volume went up 24%. And we also tracked the count. The count went up 7.3%. So there was more seller finance transactions than there was in the prior year. And what's surprising is this is in a year that we know that existing home sales were way down because there just wasn't as much inventory. People were hanging on to that. So a lot of times when the existing home sales go down, seller financing goes down just because we're a certain percentage of it and it goes down, we go down. But right now it's going down and we're going up. So it'll be fun to explore all our thoughts and reasons that everybody contribute as we get through this, why we all think that is.
Okay. 89,773. That is how many seller carryback loans were created across the United States.
That made up that 28 billion. Yeah. So we do the count and then we do the dollars.
And it doesn't include the private hard money financing. It only includes people that own a property and resell it on terms.
Yes.
That's a significant number. I can't wait to see the breakdown on this. If every time I click the button, it doesn't work, I have to click off a different screen. It's getting annoying. Sorry, guys. All right, Tracy.
So we're talking about that in 2023, that existing home sales went down over 18%. They had the weakest year for home sales since 1995, and it had gone down the prior year as well. And yet we see seller financing going up.
I was trying to see where it spiked at on that graph. Is that, what would you say, 2006, 2005?
Probably 5 and 6.
Yeah,
we're all trying to get our glasses on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, get the readers out.
Jay, get out the magnifying lens.
It spiked before the subprime mortgage meltdown, and then of course it kept going up after that, and then a lot of home sales after COVID, and now that rates have gone up, we see people hanging on to those properties.
That's amazing.
So the reason we feel all this is happening, more seller financing, is something called the Mortgage Credit Availability Index. Okay. And this is tracked by the Mortgage Bankers Association. It says, hey, how hard or easy is it for me to go out to a real bank and get a loan to buy my house? So when it's high, it's easy. And when it's low on that scale, it's hard. And so it got hard after the subprime mortgage meltdown. And it got hard again after COVID. And then it got harder still when the rates went up. That's where those 3 arrows are. So this says, hey, when are banks tightening up on lending to people who want to buy a home? And it could be a variety of reasons. They could be pulling back because of the secondary market. There could be high risk like there was after 2008. There could be money that's dried up. They could be worried about higher down payments and better credit scores. They want better quality. So when banks start getting stingier with their money, we see there's more seller financing. It just naturally happens. There's more seller financing when banks are more stingy with their money.
Okay, yeah, and you answered a question I was going to ask earlier on two slides ago. Was, is there a correlation between when the rates go up and the banking's tight versus seller financing? So I guess the answer is yes. Sorry, Chris, I'll cut you off.
Yes. I think the general public often does not understand that the banks, all right, their financing is just a very top sliver, all right, maybe 10 to 15% of the whole potential market that's out there. They want the very premium at the very top. That doesn't mean that there's a whole nother group just right underneath of that don't necessarily check all the boxes that the bank has, but they're very viable borrowers that make good incomes and can put a good down payment. And when people often they hear seller financing, they think the $500 a month, 500 down, 500 a month, and that is so far from the truth of what is actually happening out here that I almost laugh when I hear that. All right. But the reality is there's many good borrowers that just don't fit in the little box that the bank has. And that's where it's a seller financing fills that gap. All right. And as they get tighter all the time like this, our opportunities to seller finance increase significantly.
Yeah, and I was speaking with somebody yesterday who speaks a lot with banks, and banks are starting to have liquidity issues because a lot of people are removing their deposits, and banks can only lend if they have the deposits in. So banks are slowing down their lending. And as Jay mentioned, banks only take up a percentage of the market. There's non-bank lenders out there. But the concern with the non-bank lenders has been when they originated it, they're originating it to turn around and securitize it and sell it to like Fannie Mae or a government-sponsored entity. But that has such a small box it has to fit in. And with the housing pricing going up and interest rates going up, now those old formulas of people heard like 28 or 38% of your income, or I think it's up to like 42, or I don't even know where it's at now. A lot of people don't meet those requirements. And now, so those non-bank lenders are throwing them out. Some of the banks that hold their loans are having the liquidity issues, and some of these sellers want to sell. So for them, they also have a lot of equity or may own the property. So it's like, hey, let me just finance it and collect the interest payment and maximize the value.
You know, Chris, what you say there is so true. The last two seller finances that we've done, their debt to both the situations where their debt to income ratios were only 28%, but yet they could not get a bank loan because of other factors. And they both were business owners.
Well, there you go. Business owners, because they don't have W-2 or they haven't worked at a job for 2 years, or there's, you know.
We're really good at writing off everything allowed under the rules.
Exactly. but it kind of bites you in the rear when you try to go and get a bank loan then. So, and both of these individuals, they make six-figure incomes. I mean, they're good borrowers. So
they think that we're laundering money because we don't have a W-2 job with an employer.
That's true.
Richard said that he tried to get I don't know if it was like a big name like Chase or something like that, but he went to a bank in California to set up for one of his newer businesses. And he explained what he did and he showed what he did and you know, through QuickBooks and stuff. And they were convinced that he was laundering money. And so they wouldn't let him bank there. Wow. And he's like, I can't win.
I've had that.
I showed you everything.
I had that happen once where after the fact, they came when I went to open a bank account for my latest fund. You know, they always go through and audit your accounts and they're like, oh, it looks like you're a payment processor, so we're closing all your accounts. And I'm like, payment processor? What are you talking about? Like, you know, and they would not let me get on the phone with anybody. They would not anything. They're like, you know, kind of, you know, judge, jury, and executioner. It's like, yep, decision's made. You got 30 days to move all your money. I'm like, okay. Kind of sucks for them that this was the largest fund that I'm going to be raising and having millions of dollars sitting in your bank account. But hey, you don't want it. That's fine for me.
You're guilty until proven innocent, and you're not allowed to prove yourself innocent.
Yep.
We have a question that popped up real quick. Go up there. Sorry, Chris, you disappeared again. What type of due diligence is used to qualify potential homeowners for a seller finance deal? Ooh, great question.
Great question.
Tracy, do you want to start us off?
Well, let's say what kind of due diligence should be used. We'll start there.
Well stated. There you go.
You don't do the breathing test? If they show up breathing, they get the loan?
Bogging a mirror?
Hey, that was 2006 and 7. We don't do those things anymore. So one of the important factors that we find would be, does this person who's going to buy the property have the ability to make the payment? Seems basic, but we kind of talked about that already, about do they have enough income to make that payment? And not just the principal and interest payment, but also the taxes and the insurance and HOA. So that's a key factor that you want to look at. We like to look at their credit worthiness, because how they paid other people is a good indicator of how they'll pay the seller. And we like to see that they put some money down because they've got some skin in the game, because anything less than 10% down, typically we've seen to be a higher default rate. So, you know, there's other litmus tests too, but for us, those are the big three.
Chris or Jay, you want to add to that, or
sure.
You good?
Yeah. I would agree totally with what Tracy is saying. I am looking on stability. Is what's all the factors that give me a comfort level of stability. We use a residential mortgage loan originator to underwrite all of our loans. So the borrower fills out a 10003 just like they would for a bank loan. So everything that they do is just like the underwriting and the forms that they fill out for a bank loan. But then I am the ultimate underwriter is the bottom line. And we want to make sure that, as Tracy said, they got the ability to repay the loan. So it's Dodd-Frank compliant. And then we have lent to individuals who don't even have a credit score, but they've been 10 years at their job. All right. They pay their bills. They don't have a credit score at all. Their ITIN borrowers often do not have a credit score. All right. And those are people who are here legally. All right. But they're not necessarily a U.S. citizen, but they have an identification number. So they're here legally. And those individuals tend to put significant large payments down. And we will not work with anyone unless they will put at least 10% down as a minimum. And we want to know, where has that 10% come from? So,
Right.
I mean, has it been a gift? A gift is okay, but what we want to see is, have they demonstrated discipline enough to save money to be able to get to that 10%, and that they can handle the money? If they can handle money, handle their finances, they've been stable at their job or in their industry for a number of years, then the likelihood that they're going to perform is really pretty high, and they put a significant skin into the game. The cards are in your favor at that point.
Yep. The thing I'll add, and again, what Tracy and Jay both said, 100% accurate, like using the RMLO, a key phrase that, people should understand what it means is called safe harbor, which means, basically there's, kind of rules that have already been said. Hey, if you follow these rules, you should be okay. And I know in some seller financing, people are like, well, I don't need to comply with Dodd-Frank, or I don't need to do this. Well, technically, you don't have to follow that letter of the law, but there's so many other laws out there because you're still giving a consumer loan to somebody. Mm-hmm. So you still need to confirm like their ability to repay. You can't just go take $10,000 from somebody and it's their last $10,000 and they have no other income and then turn around and foreclose against them. You could potentially have litigation come against you in that sense. And one of the things that I've seen an RMLO do that I thought was interesting, and we also do this internally, even on like sometimes loan mods on our loans, is the Veterans Affairs Administration has a spreadsheet that kind of takes into account like where the person lives, like what's their average cost of housing in that area and everything. And it's kind of, a spreadsheet where you can calculate also whether the borrower does have that ability to repay based off of what's the average heating bill in that area for this size house. And, we like to use that. So if somebody ever questions, well, did you confirm this borrower could afford this? It's, well, yeah, we ran it through what the government, same thing the government underwrites with. So, that kind of leads you a lot of times to keep, what's called, again, that safe harbor.
Awesome. Great explanation, guys. So they need to pass the eye test, meaning you got to, trust but verify. Say, here's the terms, here's the situation. Is this in your wheelhouse to afford that? Oh yeah, okay, great. Now fill out this form so we can prove that. Right, the RMLO, and you don't have to pay for the RMLO as the lender. That's something you put on the settlement statement, and the borrower pays. So,
and one thing I'll just add, Justin, is like I'm seeing a lot of people online right now, like in Facebook groups and stuff, like finding a seller finance deal and like borrowing the escrow and the down payment, and whoever's originating that paper, that borrower, I'm going to feel bad for them, because most likely if somebody has to borrow the money that they can't even put $2,500 down in escrow or no down payment, history says a lot of those loans are going to probably end up in default.
98% of them will. I'll say that. They will definitely. The other thing is whether you're required or not to utilize an RMLO. Why would you not utilize an RMLO to make sure that the borrower has the ability to repay. I mean, we're looking at something 20, 30 years down the road, and you calculate the amount of money that will come into you over that period of time. Why would you not spend some time up front to make sure that you've got a good buyer that can perform, rather than all the headache that you've got to go through down the road for a foreclosure? Okay, that just makes no business sense to me.
Yeah, you got to think of it. If you're investing in something, don't you want a return? And wouldn't you do everything in your power to make sure you get that return? You know? So, all right, Tracy.
This chart shows that the count, not the volume by dollars, because, you know, properties keep getting more expensive. So it makes sense that the dollar volume keeps going up. But this just this is the count. And we can see we had a lot of seller financing after the subprime mortgage meltdown. And that was correlated to that really tight credit market on the last slide of the mortgage credit availability. And then it kind of tapered off. And now we're starting to see it bump up again, because as mortgage credit availability is tight, we find that with seller financing, it takes a little longer for it to trail. It kind of trails behind that mortgage credit availability. So we're thinking this year is going to be, you know, another increase in seller financing like it was last year based on that.
That's pretty cool to see it over the past, was that 13 years?
We've tracked it even further, but at some point, Fred told me, my husband, that's too many things on one slide.
It looks like a roller coaster
okay,
now.
I'll take off 2 years.
Right.
Well, based on CPI today, it doesn't look like rates are going to go down anytime soon. I haven't seen what the Fed minutes said, but I just heard that, you know, numbers didn't come out too well today.
Oh, cool, Tracy. You got a little thumbs up when you did that on your video screen. That's pretty cool. I didn't know I did that. Awesome. Technology, squirrel. Sorry, Jay. You haven't done any updates in a while, Jay. Sorry. All right, Tracy.
Owner financing is not just for residential. Residential makes up about 50% of that, even more on the count, about 63%. But we also see commercial that's seller financed. And that made about 33% in the dollars, about 17% of the count. Land is seller financed. That was about 13% on the dollars and 16% on the count. And then some of the counties don't always report what the property type was. So we always have this little bucket that we don't quite know, but it pretty much averages out like the other three categories. So it's not just for residential. Now, when we talk about MLOs and owners that occupy and live in that home, that's a lot of the Dodd-Frank conversation. When you talk about investor properties or commercial or land, those don't always apply. Check with your attorney, but that doesn't always apply to Dodd-Frank. But nonetheless, that is a lot of seller financing that we see out there. So bulk of residential, then commercial, then land.
I actually thought land would have had, from a count perspective, not dollar, but from the count perspective, would have been higher than commercial.
Is it because you only took 30,000 and higher in UPB?
That could be. Yeah, that's a really good point, Justin. Yeah.
Yeah, because
that's my ad for today.
I'm
done. I'll sit back now.
You get the gold star.
Yes.
I would say I have done a couple commercial loans, and what we've done with seller financing to help some people that we know locally and have confidence in how they operate. But we still put them through underwriting. We still did an RMLO with them. Just because I want to know where they stand and I want to know where all their debt is. I want to know everything about them, and I've communicated that right up front. So,
best practices, right, Jay?
Best practices. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need somebody telling you have to do it to make it good to do it. Like you don't need your dentist to tell you to brush and floss. You just know you need to brush and floss. So
I don't know. I need to be told. That's just me, though.
And I just like to kind of pull up, it's a whole lot of numbers, but this just shows how that residential commercial land broke down since 2019 for the last 5 years, how we got to that 125 billion. And we can see that in dollar volume, that residential went up from 2022 to 2023, about 17%, from 11 billion to 14 billion. And commercial went up from 5.8 billion to 9.2 billion. That's a 60% increase. So we're seeing a lot of increase on that commercial side of seller financing. That's very indicative of what's going into the commercial lending. It's even tighter, much tighter than the residential side. And land pretty much stayed the same. We had a big bump in land back in 2019, 2020, when we saw lots of big developer packages getting sold off before they got split up into smaller parcels. But that's just interesting to see, which categories are growing, at least by the dollar volume.
Do you have any future slides here that we're going to see that show what the average commercial seller finance loan was?
Yes.
Okay. The unknown was, it looks like either the county started accounting for the proper type of loan that it should be going to, and it keeps getting smaller and smaller. So at least it sounds like they're getting better with that.
Yeah, and I got to give credit and a shout out to Advanced Seller Data Services. Scott Arpan owns that company. He's been supplying us this data. He actually goes out and scrapes it all. And so, every year he gets better at fine tuning that data. So thank you, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
You can't do 9.3 billion divided by 15,142 in your head, Justin. So
I'm sorry, what?
Well,
All I see is a bunch of commas.
Justin.
That's all
I'm
I
gonna
see.
say
The
about
average.
620,000. No,
I saw you on your calculator. Don't act
No,
like
my
you got
calculator's
that
over
over your
there.
head. Yeah,
So
wise guy, huh?
There you go. You're coming up
Wow,
on the
look
next
at that.
slide.
I didn't even
That's
know it was
close.
next. I honestly didn't know.
So this is exactly what Chris was talking about. When we know the volume and we know the count, then we can get an average. And so the average seller financed note size was 248,523 last year. It was about a 10% increase over the prior year. And what I love about this statistic is the average loan to value is 74%.
4%. Yeah.
That means
Kind
they
of
put
defeats it.
down an average of 26%. So much what Jay, you were saying, Jay, everybody thinks it's 0 down or 500 down. That this shows that is not the case, as you
No.
said.
This isn't FHA where it's a negative 3% down. We'll give you 1,500 to get this loan.
And then commercial also had a nice hefty down payment because it had 72% loan to value, and the average size was 613,000. That was a 41% increase from the prior year, so a big increase. And land stayed pretty close to the same. I think it's about a 6.9% increase, but also lots of down there, almost 30% down on the land deals as well.
So the number that says versus underneath the LTV, is that what it was before? Did I miss that?
Prior year, yeah,
Right,
2022
okay.
is the little one, and 2023 is the current.
Yeah, I keep telling land people that 30% down is the 30 to 40% down is the common number to seller finance land, and they're just like, I think 10% is. I'm like, oh no, you won't be selling it to somebody like me without a big haircut.
That's right.
Well, and a lot of those land developers have also inflated the price a bit. They're getting a premium price because they're giving terms that are so easy to get in if they don't require a lot down. And having done this 30 plus years, land is the first thing to start suffering, and then commercial when you have challenges of people making payments and the values go first. So yeah, you're smart to be careful on the land. I like land notes. We do land notes, but I want them to have good credit and I want them to have down payment. And if they don't have a lot of down payment, then I want to see that they paid for a lot of years, some kind of verifiable payment history.
Yeah, if you think about land, it's somebody doesn't really live there, unless they're planning to build on in the future. So it's not going to be a priority for them to pay when things get tight. So that's like another risk factor in the back of my mind that says, yeah, let's make sure we monitor that or take that into consideration.
Yeah, or maybe they put a tiny home on it. Justin, you had a deal where they moved a tiny home on their piece of land, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes it more secure.
I lived in a tiny home. It was a tiny home on wheels. It was a camper.
That's the original tiny home. That's what I always tell people. That was the original tiny home.
It was no real property, just personal property. Got a lot of miles on that thing. All right.
So, hey, where would you expect are the top states? So we find that 10 states make up about 67% of the volume. It used to be 70% each year. It goes down a little bit, but 10 states make up most of the volume. And Texas, all the time we've been tracking it, has the most seller finance transactions. This is based on count, not dollars, because we think dollars would get one state to run away with it. Looking at you, California. And but Texas has always been number one for the most seller finance notes created. Florida, number two. And believe it or not, just based on count, California, number three, has a lot of seller financing too. And you can just see the other states spattered around there. So if you're interested in seeing every state, all 50 states, you can download the whole state list over at noteinvestor.com/stats.
Why do you think California has a high count?
They always have. That surprises people, but there are parts of California where they use seller financing. Yeah.
You gotta also think outside the major metropolitan areas where it's not like $5 million for parking space. You know, you got to remember California is basically the size of the East Coast outside of Florida. So there's still affordable places in California. Most people just don't want to live there.
Gotcha. Okay,
and there's a lot of transactions there too. So just when you're talking number of transactions, that also starts to add up. Yeah. Fred, my husband, said we need to figure out a way to do this per capita. So that's on my list for next year, to figure out how to do it per capita.
Yeah. Ones that surprised me a little bit are like Pennsylvania. I know it's a big state and stuff, but it's also, you know, some of these judicial states where you do have to foreclose versus, you know, Texas, you know, you go to the bathroom, come back, and your foreclosure sales occur. Same with Georgia.
Exactly.
Even California. I mean, California, actually, most people don't realize California foreclosures are fairly quick. Now, if you got to evict somebody, that's a whole nother animal.
They can live there forever.
Some of these states actually surprise me in regards to, like, Virginia, where I'm from, is a big state, and as you get outside of the DC area, there's a lot of affordable homes, and I'm surprised there's not more like seller carry, down in those necks of woods, or like Tennessee is booming right now. So I thought I'd see more there for people who had gotten significant equity and from that standpoint. But yeah.
So what's the Washington, and then what's the one above Washington?
Nothing. Canada?
Or no, sorry, the one below Oregon. Okay,
Oregon.
I missed the line. I saw the Washington next to me. I was like, I don't think that's Washington, but perhaps my third grade geography knowledge neglected me.
I mean, I did learn today that it's Spokane, not Spokane. I thought it was pronounced
Spokane. I'm from it's Spokane. Yeah. No Spokane.
How is it spoken?
No Spokane either. Spokane.
Okay. There's my dad.
So to Chris's point, I just peeked to make sure I was right. Tennessee was number 11. It almost squeaked in to the top 10. Yeah. So your hunch was right.
Mm-hmm. So
Justin, I think for us, for Indiana, there still is a ton of people that write a land contract and never record it. That's not getting picked up.
We're number one for unrecorded documents.
Unrecorded contracts, probably.
Right.
Yeah, and Michigan's probably right behind you.
Yeah, Michigan would be there as well. Yeah.
Usually
fall by Ohio
after a couple beers. So Florida being number 2, I've heard it up there in the top 5. Many years since you've been announcing this data, annually. But I don't see a lot of seller finance Florida loans for some reason, and I don't know why that is. But do you guys see a lot of Florida loans come across your desk?
Land,
okay.
Mm-hmm. That swap land.
Land.
We see a lot of mobile home and land that's considered real property.
Yep.
I like those better than just land, because usually the people are living in it, so they'll pay the payment to keep the roof over their head. They're a little more challenging when it comes to insurance, but yeah. So this just is kind of how we do the count, and there's that Tennessee in there, 11, South Carolina, Idaho, Ohio, Utah. So yeah, if you want to see where your state, you can go to that noteinvestor.com/stats, and you can download a copy of it.
So Texas has always doubled the second place winner on this chart.
Yeah, they have. People say, why is that? And it's like, well, first off, they've been doing seller financing a long time. It's a big state, and seller financing they're just used to it. I mean, more something's done, it becomes acceptable. They also have a lot of buyers that also might be no credit or ITIN, and so they might have more challenges getting bank loans. And they have really good rules and laws in Texas. They're friendly to creditors, as Chris had mentioned, and they're fair also to the buyer borrowers, especially when it comes to wraps and subject tos. They have very specific laws to protect those buyers. And so I just think Texas makes it easy for everyone to do seller financing in their state. And so it just continues to grow.
They don't have any state income tax there, do they?
They don't.
Is that right? Yeah,
that is correct.
Probably one of those states that does that. They're very friendly to everybody.
High property tax, though. correct.
They do.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's true.
Well, they looked that over because of the no income tax.
That's the way they justify it, right?
That tax is
Well,
coming from
the
somewhere.
freebie we'll take from here.
We also look at the types of note creators. So if somebody creates one note in 12 months, we consider them a mom and pop. You know, they may not create any more notes, or maybe they'll do another one, but usually they sell their home and they're moving somewhere else. And 86% of those are mom and pop sellers. And people always think it's going to be the other way around, that the pros are doing more of these. But the pros who created 2 or more notes in a 12-month period, they make up about 14%. And this is by count. And some of those create 4 or more notes. That's 6% of the whole. And 8% of them create 2 to 3 notes. So, you know, you start getting over Dodd-Frank, as we talked about before. There are some exemptions for seller financing if you're an individual doing 1 in a 12-month period, and there's some additional restrictions, requirements when you're doing more. And so we kind of like to break that out. We also like to break it out and think about it in our marketing, because we would talk to a mom and pop note seller different than we'd talk to a professional note seller. Their motivations for selling might be different also. The quality of the paper is different. When we talked about all those things that, we hope they used an MLO and they made sure they could pay and they checked their credit and they got some down payment. We hope the pros are doing that. But let me tell you, mom and pops generally are not. And so you've got to try to recreate that file as best you can when you're looking at buying those notes.
Isn't the real estate investor numbers similar to this as far as like rentals, like more of the mom and pop rental landlord or landlord hobbyists, like the ones that own like 1 or 2, are significantly more of the market than even the Blackstones?
Yeah,
That's
there was
yeah.
somebody came out with a report that was trying to say that, you know, like 30% of all homes last year were bought up by like institutions and stuff, but that was not accurate information in regards to, you know, where investor properties were getting bought up and stuff. But no, you're right. Most of the, you know, homes for real estate or secondary properties are owned by, you know, individuals. I think it's between like 1 and 3 make up a huge percentage.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get in the market with the guys that create 4 more notes. That's the guy I'm looking for.
Sure.
Yeah. So you just call up Scott Arpen at Dan Seller Data Services and ask him to run that list for you.
I actually have.
I
have that list.
You
I'm
have
not
that
giving
list.
it up either.
You're not giving it up. There you go.
None of you can see it.
Justin's like, stop.
I don't care how many Red Sox games you take me to, Chris. I'm still not giving it up.
Yeah. So it was interesting because you mentioned like Scott, we found another source that does it all for like the private lending.
Yes.
Where they can do it. And again, maybe Scott can do that as well, but that's all they track is like the Kiavis and by geographic area, and they scrape same thing, all the counties and stuff, and can tell you, you know, so if people who actually want to act as a private lender, which is another topic we'll talk about another time, it's like you can find out who's lending and who's borrowing in certain areas. You know, and there's so much data now online, which is makes life much easier than it was back in, you know, the late 90s and stuff, where, you know, I remember if I wanted to see my stock, how it was doing, I'd have to open up the newspaper and look into the business section. So
the obituaries, you mean? Your stocks?
Well, yeah.
Maybe not yours. Okay.
No, yeah, I went all in on WorldCom back in at a period of time when it was supposed to be the next, you know, big tech giant, and we all know how that worked out for me.
Did you say Enron?
Nah, it's pretty much same thing. WorldCom, you know, they were number 2 behind Enron, you know, for the biggest fraudulent bankruptcy ever.
Cool. We have reached we've passed the climax of the slides with the numbers here.
Yeah.
All right.
Perfect timing too.
/stats. So noteinvestor.com, that's your main business that you do, Tracy?
Yeah, we have a website. It's got over 300 articles on there. We believe in empowering people with knowledge, whether you're going to buy a property with seller financing or sell a property with seller financing, or you'd like to start buying notes for passive income. We just believe in, you know, somebody taught me this business back in 1988, and somebody taught my husband, believe it or not, in a community college class down in California. He learned about note investing.
Oh.
Yeah, Yeah, and so we both believe in giving back by sharing the knowledge, and so we also do some training and mentoring. But our main goal is just to introduce people to the idea and see if it might be right for them.
I'm going to give Tracy a plug because I know a lot of people have taken your training to learn seller financing and performing loans, and every person that takes it, if they've looked at something else, they all go back to same thing, saying, "Oh, Fred and Tracy's training has been, the best and so helpful, and just the amount of input, the community you put together." So I just want to give you kudos for that.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me.
Agreed here. I'm actually part of that community, so I have been for a few years here, but I'm part of two groups, and yours is definitely one of them. So
yeah, well, thanks you guys. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to us.
They do a great job.
I echo that. Chris stole my thunder because I was going to say the exact same thing. So I took my notes.
I'm just mad that Jay's not part of my group. So it's okay, Jay.
Tracy got to me first. Sorry.
He can only handle one group at a time. So he committed with Tracy. He's got to stay with Tracy's group. So, what it is. All right, you guys can reach out to Tracy directly. She answers the phone 24 hours a day.
No. Email is the very best way to get me. I'm an email person, but you will get that reply on the phone. It just might be from Michaela.
I don't even have her phone number. The only way I get a hold of her is email, and hope to God that she recognizes me and responds. So awesome. Well, thanks for sharing all that data today. That was awesome. Noteinvestor.com/stats. If you guys have anything you want to sell, go ahead and scan this QR code. If you're watching the replay, you'll get to a form where you can fill out information. I'm the guy that'll probably buy any of these. The rest of you might buy some of them or most of them. So we're just looking for first liens, performing, non-performing. That's kind of the best inventory that we're looking for right now. We will look at some commercial stuff, but probably nothing like a gas station or a single-use type of business. It's probably not going to be a good option for us to buy right now because of all the information we provided today. There is a Facebook group that we kind of started a few years back just for this broadcast that we do. It's active, but it's not active, meaning we have people on there that are looking for deals. We have people on there that are looking for more education. So we hope that this program provides them with more education to help them, advance their career in real estate note investing. We obviously record all the stuff on Facebook as well. So you can watch any of the replays that we've done over the last, I was thinking about this earlier today. I've been doing this for, I think, 6 years straight, this second Wednesday of the month for every month. And I've only missed 2 of them. And I had people sub for me. So this has been going on for quite a while. So there's a lot of content available out there, probably more than you want, but it's a good laugh to see what I looked like 6 years ago. And now I have no hair. So there you go.
You're joining the group, Justin. You're close
I didn't even
to
think
my heart.
about that, going back to like my first podcast episodes and being like, what did I look like then? So
you look the same. You got that baby face. You don't change too much.
So no, it's like, with the Zoom or whatever, you can like put those filters to make, make
oh
you
yeah.
look, yeah. So,
I use those.
Yeah.
And people see in person and go, whoa, you got a lot more wrinkles than you look like on there.
I always love meeting somebody and then be like, you're a lot taller. Wow, you're shorter than I thought you would be. It's always the height.
When I met Chris the first time, that's exactly what I was. Man, you were a lot shorter than what I thought you were.
Are you at a distance, Chris?
So, well, on these, I wear my heels for you, Jay. So.
All right, thanks, Joe. Appreciate that love. Clay, thank you very much. And Michael, thank you very much as well. Appreciate everyone on the live part of the show today. Do you guys have any thoughts about what happened today? We'll break this down before we get off here. Jay, you always got lots of content to share.
Well, I was just going to say from the standpoint, seller financing is alive and well, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, I anticipate tremendous opportunities. We have some stuff on our website as well as for educational. All right, that's we provide free as well. You can go and look at that. Great, and I think we all will buy pretty much everything of what Justin said. We're all on that boat, so it's whatever, whoever you want to work with.
Yeah, I'll distribute the opportunities to these folks on that are my guest here, my guest hosts, and so we all take a take a crack at it. If you got something that you want to sell, any of us will probably buy it. Tracy, thanks for being on today and adding all that stuff. Look forward to doing a recording with you tomorrow. Is there anything that you want to add before we leave for today?
I'd like to just tell people that there's enough for everybody to go around,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of paper, and that's just a small niche of what we all do. I mean, when you talk about the non-performing or the scratch and dent or the private lending, or these unrecorded land contracts. I mean, there's so much more market out there. And so we see, the markets ebb and flow. Sometimes some types of niches are more popular than others. And so right now, seller financing is having its day. But when you look back at it, it's always had its day. There's always plenty to go around. And so I think, like all the people here that you have on your show, we kind of feel that way. And we know it's like, hey, I got this deal and maybe not fit for me. It might be good for you. I think I just asked Justin to check out a piece of property in Indianapolis for me. Thank you. And so we are a network because, you get to know people and you got boots on the ground in your own local area. And so if you network with the right people, I think you'll find that it's a very open community, and don't be afraid of it. I mean, it's something different than maybe you've done, but different can be very good. Did
you pull the trigger on that deal?
No. Good. Thank you for your intel.
Go ahead and explain what we did.
Oh, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, we can talk about it real quick. Yeah.
Okay. All right. There's a seller finance note that was recently created by somebody who was a professional seller, and it had a nice 10% down payment, and it had a second, and it looked decent overall. It had a nice rate. I just didn't know that area because I don't live in that state, and I could have hired boots on the ground to go look at it. I of course looked up data online to get my feeling for it, and ultimately I could have just hired somebody to go out and look at it, but I'm like, hey, I know somebody that lives in that nearby that city. Why am I wasting all this time? Why don't I just ask the question? And I said, this is what the online data is showing me. Boots on the ground are way better. Can you tell me whether you feel this is a up and coming neighborhood, or if there's issues with values or perhaps safety issues? And so, yeah, thank you, Justin. You reached out and gave me an answer back right away.
Well, it's cool. You're welcome anytime for any of you guys. And I know you did the same for me. But the house pictures look great. The remodel looked really good. And you wouldn't have known if you just shown that picture to somebody. Oh yeah, I would have bought a loan on that all day long. Give me 100 of those, right? And then when we find out that it's not really in an area that's going to be just a good area, it's like, yeah, okay.
Some people specialize in that paper. It's not what I want. I'm buying it for a self-directed IRA, and that's just not the kind of paper I'm looking for that. Yeah. But somebody else, it might make a good home for. It's just, everybody has a different appetite, and I'm in the sleep well at night appetite column.
All right.
Tracy, you bring up a good point. Every one of us have different criteria. Just because it may not work for you, may not necessarily that wouldn't necessarily work for me for what we want. Every investor has their own set of criteria of what they're looking for specific reasons. So just because one doesn't work for one person doesn't mean it would not work for another.
Yeah, that didn't mean it was a bad deal. I mean, the paper was written well. They did all the things with an MLO, and the property looked nice. It just didn't fit my portfolio, but there will be a home for it out there.
Okay. Chris, you have anything you want to add to the final thoughts here?
Yeah, I'll just add, again, tagging on to what Jay and Tracy said about, the community and people helping each other, and there's plenty of opportunity. There's also people are willing to help in this industry. So if you're looking at an asset and you have a question, reach out to people, whether it's in a Facebook group or ask somebody who, has experience, say, hey, look, do you mind spending 5 minutes just taking a look at this, or a quick check, a sanity check that either I ran a number properly, or, did I order the right type of title report, or whatever the case may be. Most people in this space are always willing to help somebody who's new, eager to learn, and hungry.
Exactly. Great comments, everybody. All right, guys. Thanks for everyone that was on the live broadcast. If you're watching the replay, we appreciate you watching the replay, and you can still add comments to it, and we'll see it, and I'll be able to ask these guys or give these guys some feedback if you have some questions for them as well. So I'm Justin Bogard. We got Chris 70, Jay Redding, and Tracy Z from noteinvestor.com/stats to download all the stats that you saw from today. And we will see you guys. I think it's May 8th is the next one. It's the second Wednesday of the month. So hope you all had a good eclipse. I know that we had it here in Indiana. We got it. It had totality there. So did you guys have it?
My son was like, that was uninspiring.
How dare him?
He's like, that was a letdown. You know, we had probably, I don't know, 70 or 80%, but you know, he was all excited. I'm like, okay, let's go outside and stuff. And then he's like, that's it. I'm like, yep. And like, that's fine. Remember when I was a kid, that was kind of same thing, you know? So yeah, we didn't have full totality. So it's, you know.
We didn't. I'm about 2 hours north of where Justin is. We're both in Indiana, and we were at 99.7 or 8%, something like that. It got dark. It got dark enough to turn the street lights on and everything, but it was not like pitch black out or anything like that. So you were right in Indianapolis was in the totality, right?
Yeah, we were full for 3 minutes and 40 seconds. I think it was totality.
Ooh.
So we took our glasses off and everything. I wasn't expecting it. What I saw, what it looked like, it was just kind of neat. And all of a sudden, when it started coming through, you see this like piercing, bright light, like coming right in your eyes. Oh, put on my glasses now.
Yeah,
when it was done. It's like, I get it now. Tracy, maybe someday I'll go to Florida. So, all right, guys, we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.